So why would anyone want to do a 30-day sugar detox? I mean, sugar is natural. It's what feeds our brain. I mean, what's going to happen to our brain if we detox sugar for 30 days? Can it survive? So let's dive into this topic. I have some new information I think you'll like, but it revolves around this one term called metabolic flexibility. That is your cell's ability to make this smooth transition between carbs and fat during a fasting state, and then until you eat, and then when you're eating, and then going into a fasting state. How well can you switch fuels? Because when you're eating, sometimes you're living off the glucose, right? The sugar. But then when you fast, okay, that's no longer available. Can your body adapt to burning fat and ketones, which are kind of like little packaged pieces of fat? How smooth and efficient can this transition take place? As well as your cell's ability to utilize fat and carbs or sugar. When you're metabolically inflexible, this transition is very, very dysfunctional. Your ability to burn fat when you go into a fasting state is very difficult. So this does explain what's really behind why people can't seem to lose any weight when they do this fasting. And then also when you exercise, let's say you're going to do some type of endurance type of exercise where you actually need glucose every so often, right? Your body just cannot seem to tap into this fat fuel when you're exercising. That means you're metabolically inflexible. So this metabolic inflexibility leads to diabetes, obesity, loss of muscle protein. That's called sarcopenia, because instead of burning fat, the body sometimes will start using muscle protein as its fuel. So the whole determination of what fuel your body is using is all dysfunctional. The fuel comes into the energy mitochondria and it doesn't get burned, and sometimes it doesn't get stored and it clogs things up. If you were to look at the mitochondria, as far as this little assembly line of turning food into energy, you'd find all sorts of bottlenecks and traffic jams. And this is what's really behind so many chronic illnesses, including cancer. So this really described what happened to me in my late 20s. Boy, I could not go for any period of time without needing a snack, or else I'd get highly irritable. Ask my wife. I remember one time we were doing all these things to try to get healthy, and I decided to do a colemma. Okay, a colemma. What's a colemma? It's a combination between a colonic and an enema, and it was developed by Bernard Jensen. And in this colon cleansing program, you don't eat any food. You're drinking this mixture of psyllium seed with certain vitamins, with apple juice, and I have never felt worse during that period of time. And when I was fasting for that week, I couldn't tap into my own fat. I was living off a little bit of sugar. I wasn't transitioning to the fat fuel, because if I was, my appetite would go away. I would feel so much better mentally, but I felt so terribly and I was so irritable. It was just miserable. And so when you have metabolic inflexibility, you're going to be grouchy, you're going to have anxiety, you're going to be tired. You're not going to be able to go for a long period of time without eating. And when you try to go on a fast, you're not going to feel good. You're going to feel tired. You're not going to be able to lose much weight. You're not going to have all the benefits that you could if you adapted and you were actually metabolically flexible. What's at the core of this problem is insulin resistance. And insulin is what controls whether you burn fat or not. And so if someone is metabolically inflexible, what's really going on is they have insulin resistance. And so the insulin is pretty high, even in a fasting state. You see this a lot with a diabetic, as well as obesity. With certain obese people, they can have like 3 times as much insulin as someone who doesn't have that problem. And so the consequence of all this extra insulin is that it's the message of don't burn fat, store fat. So the person tries and tries and tries and just can't lose the weight. But there is a way to transition over to create this metabolic flexibility, which really is insulin sensitivity. And there's many benefits for this. Okay, you'll be able to go long periods of time without hunger, without cravings. You'll be able to actually burn fat, which would be a great thing. And also your efficiency of burning sugar will be better too. The sugar that comes in the mitochondria can finally be burned as well. And so occasionally, if you go off your keto plan and you go on some carbs, your body can burn those fuels. So the ideal situation would be able to build up your body into a state of insulin sensitivity and metabolic flexibility. So I'm going to show you 4 ways to do that. And just so you know, if you did this for 30 days, chances are you would create a huge impact into this problem. Number 1, you eat less frequently. This goes against what people tend to tell you to do, right? Eat often to prevent hunger. Like this hunger is a bad thing, like you're starving. No, it's actually being hungry sometimes is a very healthy thing. It's in our genetics. We've been hungry for a very long time. And if we never let our body get hungry because we're constantly feeding it, we develop metabolic inflexibility.
Number 2, eat fewer carbs.
All right, number 3, and this may be a new one for you. Eat sufficient amount of fat, but don't eat excessive amounts of fat if you are metabolically inflexible. Why? Because not only can you not efficiently burn glucose, you also can't burn fat too well either. That's why you can't lose weight. So why would you want to add so much extra fat to the diet? That would be a mistake. I'm not telling you to go low fat, but just don't add all these additional fats that so many people add into a ketogenic diet. I'll never forget the story of a friend of mine that went on the ketogenic diet. First of all, his definition of keto was just a high-fat diet, right? And he didn't want to do intermittent fasting. So he made these fat bombs. They're like pure fat, coconut oil and butter and MCT oil and maybe a little almond oil. And he was just down in these all day long. I think the first week he gained 5 pounds. The second week, I think he gained 7 pounds. That is not what you want to do. So get your fat that normally comes with the meat, okay, or other things, but don't go low fat if you're doing cheese or something like that, but don't add additional fat. And that way we can get your body to tap into your own fat. That is the purpose of the fat, to provide for extra fuel during times when you're not eating. And so when you go on a fast and you eliminate glucose, now the body has no choice but to burn its own fat. And we can really screw this up if our meal is very high in fat, because now we don't give the system a chance to tap into our own fat. So let's say you're doing 2 meals a day and you're adding this extra MCT oil and these extra fats. And even if you're going 18 hours, okay, all that fat that you ate in the last meal is still not used up. How do you expect to ever lose weight? So I just wanted to emphasize that one point. Okay, number 4, exercise snacking. Now this is probably a new word for you. It was coined by someone back, I think, in 1970. And it's not eating while you're exercising, okay? Exercise snacking is basically short bouts of exercise through the day, like doing this high-intense interval training bout for 5 minutes before you eat, and then walking after you eat. What they found was very interesting. When they compared doing that to like a regular pattern of eating and doing this workout maybe at a standard time during the day, is that when you have these short bursts of exercise throughout the day, that produces way more benefits to your blood sugars, to making insulin more sensitive, as well as to improving your metabolic flexibility better than the old pattern. So I recently mentioned this in a video. Instead of sitting in front of the desk all day, break it up with maybe every hour or every 2 hours, you do a little short exercise. That's going to break up the pattern of sitting all day, being sedentary. And it's also very doable because you're only spending like 5 minutes doing a workout. And if you want to take it to the next level, you can, instead of doing high intensity interval training, you can do a version of that called SIT, which stands for sprinting interval training, right? So this is like the flat out, full, high intensity, using the maximum intensity type exercise you can do, which is sprinting. And you're only going to be doing it for 10 seconds, right? And you rest for a period of time, do it for another 10 seconds, rest for a period of time. And that produces some serious results. In fact, that's what I'm experimenting right now with. Actually, I'm doing it up a hill. I'm running or sprinting up a hill to add more resistance. And I can only go like 15 seconds and I'm done. And if you can combine this with intermittent fasting, not overdoing with your fat, within 30 days, you're going to produce some serious results, not just with your weight, for your overall health.
Now, because of the censoring and the suppressing of the algorithms on YouTube, it's becoming more difficult to find my content. And there's a lot of content that I cannot put on YouTube, unfortunately. So to make sure you have full access of all my information, go to drberg.com and subscribe to my newsletter by clicking the link down below in the description. I will see you on the other side.